The real problem here is the cost. I mean, we have basically a 3,000 square foot facility, which is multi-floor. Two principal floors, a full basement. Of course, the basement would have to be reworked because part of it was being used as a garage for the fire department. The building is in poor condition. We did have a company look at it, and they estimated something in the order of $200 a square foot, not including utilities and heat and so on and so forth, just to refurb. And that didn't include an elevator, which is going to cost you another $100,000+ to install. And that's a real tricky problem there because groundwater level is like 3.5 inches below the basement. So it is a tricky issue to get that in. I firmly believe the town should be given an opportunity to express its opinion by having two warrant articles, one for demolition and one for bonding. Because I don't think you're going to, the building basically has got to be stripped in order to do what you need to do. The roof is full of holes. It is leaking. The whole roof needs to be replaced. The building has black mold. It's been treated several times for sand fleas in the basement. Probably still has them.
Can you say anything good about the building, Fred?
We're not using it.
Got nice
Do we
architectural
have,
lines.
It looks
why
good.
don't we start the conversation with Ben here? He's done some studies with the courthouse, and why don't we hear what Ben has to say?
Well, the bottom line is that if no department wants to step up to use it, I can only assume that no departments have space needs. And I will look at that as my long-term planning on CIP, that if there are no needs for space that would require the adaptive reuse of this building, then I'll know where the department heads stand on that.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, well then perhaps they.
The question is it worth $1 million?
Yeah, and I think the numbers can be looked at to see whether it is $1 million or not, because I didn't get quite that. I don't know exactly what the estimator from Ekman told us in toto.
No, I understand.
So, but I'm prepared actually. I mean, not being somewhat tongue-in-cheek on my previous observation, because I think there are space needs. But I think the town departments don't necessarily want to adopt this building as their own and go through the struggles that I'm sure we'll have with the voters on spending money to save a structure that's historic in the town. So I think whether it's $1 million that goes in the warrant article for bonding to improve it, or some different number, the voters let's give the voters the choice. I don't think there's going to be any conversations that I have with departments in this town that are going to provide a different answer, that they're ready to chomping at the bit to use this space. I mean, we do have space issues. And indeed, there's a study that was authorized in this year's warrant regarding Parks and Rec. The library is terribly overcrowded. There's no doubt about that. And the space would be, in my opinion, and that's all it is, usable for either of those two departments, and could at least provide a stopgap as far as a community center. In any case, it's got to go to the town, and I think we should firm up the demolition number, and we should try to firm up a little bit, or get at least a second answer, and look at the two different answers that we get. This answer came from someone who was working with a bond issue last year regarding the fire stations. I think that. And that's not to say I'm not making any statement, but I mean we should have perhaps someone else come in if they're willing and give us a number as to what it might cost to adaptively reuse it. So I'm ready to go forward with the two warrant articles.
Mr. Pierce.
Do we have to go through with warrant articles? Can we just offer it to the public or anybody who wants it. If that nobody comes along and says they want it for any purpose, we can just go ahead and bulldoze it. Is
I
that a
think
choice we can make?
You need town meeting approval to demolish the building.
Okay, that
Dispose
answers
of
the
it.
question. Thank you.
Mr. Bean?
I think that Selectman Moore's comments and the town manager's comments are very prescient, and I support both of their opinions very strongly.
We're diametrically opposed on this issue.
Don't confuse the public, please, Ben. One comment is, I believe the costs that came in conjunction from Ekman in conjunction with the fire station design at costs levels that wouldn't necessarily be reflected for other uses, just based on some of the technology and whatever. So I think that there's reason to believe that a more administrative use might be less. And that was, I remember that was a comment that the chief had made at the time that he presented those numbers. The second comment that I would make is, with the information that we have in front of us, and presuming we had a proposal for a selectman-sponsored warrant article, I would be opposed to that $1 million selectman-sponsored warrant article simply because we don't know what all the other priorities are that we're going to be looking at. We don't know how that fits in terms of priorities in relation to pumpers for the fire department, infrastructure needs that we talked about, and all that within the context of what seems reasonable as to what voters might be willing to accept as long-term increases in the tax rate. So I think that it's premature to say that we're going to put a $1 million selectman-sponsored warrant article in 2013 until such time as we get through the CIP, make an effort to forecast the tax rate driven by those items that are in the CIP, see where that all stacks up, and then how this thing prioritizes into that. So those are my comments.
May I, Mr. Chairman, again? I'd like to add something to my comments, because I just really had one question. My comment is, I've been through that courthouse the other day with a couple other people, and my impression of the building is that, like Fred says, it's got down to the frame. Then what have you got when you get down that far? I think it's debatable, and I think probably the high estimate on the cost is probably close, because if you're trying to preserve the frame, you still have to completely redo the outside. You have to completely redo the inside for any purpose I can think of. So I'm not trying to disagree with Ben particularly, but my feeling is after going through that and hearing everybody's opinion over the years, I think the choice we should probably, before the voters, you want to bulldoze it yes or no and not add any money to the cost. We say, do you want to get rid of it, yes or no? And that's the only warrant article we should put out there. Do you want to get rid of it or not?
We can obviously get an estimate on what it would cost to demolish it. We can obviously get a close estimate on what it would cost to actually physically redo the building. So my suggestion to the board is that we proceed in that fashion to get as cheap an estimate as possible within the confines of our existing budgetary requirements.
So
And you'll have an answer to both questions.
Okay.
how long do you think this will take?
Since we're not in a rush, we'll start asking for that information within the next week. And I can't tell you how long it will take. It depends on who we can get. We've got 2 or 3 firms we can call right now that can come in and give us both estimates. But
As long
it'll
as
take a
it's
little
by
while.
November the 5th, we're cool.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments on that issue? Moving on to